In the gathering dusk, a camera crew of the National Geographic, equipped with a newly invented image intensifier thousands of times as powerful as human eyesight, sets out to probe the hidden world of the African night. Their camera lens, like an owl's eye, can now literally pierce the shadows and film scenes not visible to the naked human eye. Across the globe, there are animals equipped to live and hunt by night and day. Till now, we have witnessed only half their lives. Crawling through the eternal night of the deepest caverns, there are unsuspected forms of life. In the sunless depths of the ocean, there are creatures man has never seen in their natural environment. From out of the dusk and gloom, as out of our troubled dreams, come living things misunderstood and feared, because they disappear with sunrise and haunt the countryside at night. The night is a foreign land where man is alien, an unfamiliar country which he surrenders in the evening to those who rightfully belong here. Some, weak and timid, have adapted to the darkness and seek protection in the shadows. Nature, in balancing the scales of life, has suited others to become nocturnal hunters. In the back alleys of the city, the behavior of a cat is shaped by the civilization which surrounds it, but its instincts are inherited from nocturnal ancestors in the wild. The eyes of a cat, to spot the slightest movement in the night, gather 10 times the light of a human eye. Man, almost helpless in the dark, has seen night creatures as supernatural and mysterious. Only recently has science been able to penetrate the world of darkness and to understand the life which thrives at night. In the Minnesota woods, a pair of great horned owls have found another creature nesting near their tree. Some 40 feet above the ground, a wildlife photographer, Jim Brandenburg, has built a blind, hoping to film a family of owls at night. To construct the blind, he worked 15 minutes at a time, then left to allow the owls to return and warm their young in the freezing Minnesota spring. Although their eyes are 100 times as sensitive as man's, They cannot see the camera beyond the floodlight's glare. Torn at first between fear of the human intruder and their instinct, the parent owls become bound to the nest by hungry chicks too young to fly. A masterpiece of adaptation to a mastery over his prey, he is a perfect creature of the senses, a superb machine driven by appetite and instinct. The great family of owls is one small group of the Earth's nocturnal creatures. To open up this hidden world to the public, the Bronx Zoo has reversed the cycle of day and night in an exhibit called The World of Darkness. In rooms dimly lighted red and blue and green, nocturnal animals are active, as they would be during natural night. As these creatures of different orders and species evolved through the unknown lost ages, each adapted in its own way to life in the dark. Descended from some primitive earthbound insect eater, the bat developed wings and became the world's only flying mammal. The prehistoric ancestors of this nocturnal monkey may have been driven by superior competitors to forage at night. However they evolved, more than half of all living creatures inhabit the world of darkness. Other organisms in search of food or safety wandered deep into the oceans and evolved to exist in a lightless universe thousands of feet beneath the sea. Dredged up from the ocean's total darkness, these tiny creatures, none larger than 4 inches, remain living mysteries of the deep. They have yet to be studied in their natural environment, so forbidding and hostile to man. Most living things found in the lightless depths employ some form of bioluminescence, a light produced by chemical reaction. Using bioluminescence, these creatures may attract their prey and find each other for schooling and for mating. And sometimes the glow, which can be controlled, is used to scare off predators. In the pitch-black depths of the earth, as in the depths of the sea, there are living things which have never seen the light of day, and many which have never been seen by man.
You see them all the way down here on the ledges of the little alcoves. Temperature's dropping about 1 degree for every step down the staircase we go. Now that we're getting further down the shaft, cave crickets are mostly up higher.
In a labyrinth of limestone which meanders far below the placid woodlands of Missouri, scientists have spent years exploring, searching for living creatures.
Do those Scythopolis go out at night?
They are biospeleologists. Their study is the life found in these caves, life whose heritage is darkness. This cavern, formed by rain and seepage and time, is known officially as the Ozark Underground Laboratory. Since 1966, when he purchased the land above to obtain this cave, this has been the private natural laboratory of scientist Tom Ailey. The life found here, some no bigger than a pinhead, has a special significance to scientists, for it could be unique, found nowhere else on Earth.
Let's go on upstream. Some of the areas up there are pretty swift, and we've got much right here.
The tiny animals hidden in the pools and rocks beneath their feet are descended from ancestors who were probably far different in their appearance and way of life. The first prehistoric creatures who took refuge in this cavern had known the sunlight and the earth. For ages they moved freely in and out. Then with geological changes in the earth, streams were blocked, entrances sealed, and animals trapped in total darkness with little food. Some perished and disappeared. Others adapted and survived and gave rise to whole new species.
There in the little pool in the rock?
Yeah, that's very nice.
That's
When he crawls out, he's really in bad shape. Does this one vary in abundance very drastically in this locality here, or is it
they're
practically always here?
They're never very prevalent here. They're sort of scattered ones at all the time.
In the world's caves are various miniature crustaceans, relatives of shrimps and lobsters. They have lost their pigmentation, protection from the sun, and their eyes, useless in the total darkness. They are blind, white animals, endlessly groping for bits of food that may be carried in by the stream. Like other creatures found here, fish are totally blind. The salamanders of the cave are a living progress chart of evolution at work. Various species will retain some pigmentation and eyesight which they have never used. The rate of evolutionary change is determined by the cave's environment, the food available, and the number of generations the species has been isolated. With little food or energy, some salamander species remain in a permanent larval state, living in the water from one generation to the next. Trapped for millions of years in the deep arteries of the earth, the Texas blind salamander is a dramatic example of evolution carried to the extreme. It is descended from tens of thousands of generations, none of whom had ever seen the light of day. It was not long ago that primitive man himself sought refuge in the caves. Long before he constructed the simplest hut, these were his shelters. But somehow, our ancestors always returned to the sunlight. In East Africa's Tanzania, there is an ancient crater where a placid sea of grass stretches for 100 square miles across the extinct volcano's floor, and where new life has risen from the ashes. Here the hyena, usually regarded as nothing but a scavenger, reveals itself a determined hunter who will pursue a creature 4 times its weight. Within this natural arena, predator and prey carry on the ageless contest that still symbolizes Africa. Through the ages, the victors and the vanquished have helped determine nature's balance and have created in the Ngorongoro crater a self-contained ecology. In the heart of the Ngorongoro crater, often camped alone on the open plain, a young Dutch scientist has devoted 7 years of his life to an animal feared by natives, despised by hunters, and long misunderstood by science. Hans Kruk has shattered both ancient and modern myths about the wild hyena. Hans Kruk does not talk about his dedication to science, nor the value of his work. I have, he says, a marvelous time in Africa. He openly admits what no one else has ever said. He loves hyenas. They are fun to watch, he says. It's exciting to see them hunt. And it's delightful to see cubs playing on their den. From the hyenas of Ngorongoro Crater has come new insight into life and nature, because one man has lived among them and cares. In African lore, the hyena is an evil presence, known to witchcraft. He has been considered as vermin to be exterminated, and thought of only as a hideous, cackling scavenger. In part, our view of the hyena is our own creation. Usually, we have seen him only in the daytime, near the villages and campsites where he has learned to scavenge among the refuse of humanity. Predator and scavenger are concepts of man. Nature makes no such fine distinctions. The mightiest will scavenge when it can, and when there is necessity and opportunity, the scavenger emerges as a killer. In the African night, men have traditionally huddled around their fires. In search of the hyenas, Hans Crook becomes himself a nocturnal creature, prowling the Ngorongoro plains. Between the lion and the hyena, there exists a bitter and continuing rivalry. Hans Crook has learned that the hyena is forced to compete with the lion, for their diets are virtually the same. With more than 400 hyenas in the crater, each must fight for its 4 pounds of meat a day. Now is the hour of the hyena. Through the night, he is aware of any movement, and his sense of smell is legendary. The spotted hyena has teeth and jaws to shear the toughest hide and crush the strongest bone. Long thought to belong to the family of dogs, the hyena is in reality more closely related to the cats. Through the darkness of the Ngorongoro Crater, night after night and month after month, Hans Crook has tracked the spotted hyena. His primary objective, to determine their relationship with other animals of the crater. The most numerous carnivore in Ngorongoro, they do not depend upon the leavings of other predators. They must kill most of their prey themselves. On this night, Hans Crook is spectator at a classic drama of life and death, played out in the ancient African crater. No hyena would dare attack a full-grown rhino, but a baby 1 month old is vulnerable. Their slow, deliberate attack is based upon persistence, agility, and sheer numbers. Though the baby rhino has no horn for self-defense, he has the fighting instinct that is his heritage from birth. The hyena, a creature of the night, is in his element. Easily avoiding the frantic charges of the weak-eyed mother, they torment their victim relentlessly. lions of Ngorongoro seldom hunt. Instead, they plunder hyena kills. Though he won't approach a full-grown rhino, the lion drives hyenas from a nearby kill and unintentionally drives off the attackers of the baby rhino. In an ending more typical of Hollywood than Africa, the intended prey escapes amidst the clash of two ancient enemies. Within the confines of the Ngorongoro crater, the rhino, the lion, the hyena live together side by side, prey and predator and scavenger. With the dawn, the rhino regains equality, but the young is wounded. The hyena is patient, and the African night is long and dark. Almost lost in the desolate Texas brushland near San Antonio is an inconspicuous opening in the earth. For unknown decades, perhaps centuries, Bracken Cave has been the natural hideout of a dark winged army, which each year in the dead of night invades the land from Mexico. The once dead and silent walls of this Texas cave become like living organisms crawling with some 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats. Out of this natural womb in the body of the earth pours life, for Bracken is called a maternity cave. Here the females return each spring to await the birth of their young. At dusk, bats by the millions burst from the cave in quest of food, a gathering storm of living things. This seemingly unending stream may wind across the landscape for 50 miles, devouring 3 to 4 billion insects in a single night. The bat's mysterious ability to find its way unerringly through starless skies has given rise to research by modern science. With the development of sensitive sound detection gear, the breakthrough came in the late 1930s. Robert Galambos proved that bats can hear ultrasonic sounds. Galambos was part of a two-man team of Harvard students. His companion, Donald Griffin, had discovered earlier that bats emit sounds beyond the range of human hearing. In further experiments, they released test animals to prove that the bats could guide themselves between a series of wires solely by echoes bouncing off the obstacles, the echoes of their own cries. The bat's use of sound was so distinct from other types of perception that Griffin coined the word echolocation. For millions of years, the bat had navigated using a principle man did not invent until the 20th century: sonar. After 3 decades, science is still trying to piece together the complex puzzle of the bat's sophisticated sonar system. At Yale University, researchers are attempting to learn how the animal can function in a world where objects are identified by echo characteristics alone. By implanting electrodes near the bat's inner ear, the scientists will be able to detect the signals which control the animal's behavior. A wire grid with a microphone attached is a landing place, which will be identified by the flying bat with his natural sonar system. His ultrasonic cries and the echoes that he hears are recorded. When played back at a slower speed, the sounds will become audible. Someday, scientists may decipher the secret code of the bat and learn how he finds in echoes an accurate picture of the world around him.
Okay, that was normal speed. Okay, that was
30 years after his first experiments, Dr. Donald Griffin is still very much involved in bat research. Visiting Yale University, the father of echolocation keeps in touch with advanced studies involving the small animals which have been so much a part of his life.
incision on his scalp, just above the...
Dr. Alvin Novick, the project director, began by working with Dr. Griffin in 1953. His work with bats goes beyond the laboratory.
Based on what Bill Henson had found in Narrated. But Narrated have a...
His studies have taken Alvin Novick to the caves and caverns of the world.
When I first started going to caves, I had two conflicting motivations. One was that I was very excited about the possibility of seeing bats that were new to me and seeing them in nature. But on the other side of the coin, one can't help feeling some kinds of restraints about caves. First, I think everyone has a touch of claustrophobia and is a little bit leery about walking down into a dark and closed space. Secondly, you're overwhelmed rapidly by the smell and the appearance of guano and the enormous insect population on the floor. They feed in part on the dead bats that fall down from the ceiling, and they also live on some of the constituents of the guano itself. There are so many, and in such vigor, that the walls and the floor often actually appear to be moving. And third, even if you're fond of bats, you're taken aback by the enormous number of them that suddenly take flight and seem to be everywhere, all at once.
Our traditional views of this creature come not from scientists who explore forbidding bat-infested caves, but from the dark recesses of our own minds. This small animal has given rise to superstition, fear, and prejudice. Most are harmless insect eaters who help save the farmers' crops. Some, like Artibius of the American tropics, feed on fruit, carrying off seeds. Others pollinate flowers. Old wives' tales notwithstanding, no bats are blind. They are not attracted to ladies' hair. And in the United States, there are no species which will bite a human, except in self-defense. From the tropics to the temperate regions, there are some 900 species of bat, varying in color, diet, and appearance. All are furry mammals. Their young are born alive and nourished at the mother's breast. Like the pallid bat of Western America, many are carnivorous. Too fast for the scorpion's sting, he makes the poisonous killer a favorite food. Others prey on lizards, birds, and frogs. Still others hunt small mammals, and some even other bats. In the unusually large, sharp claws of a tropical bat called Noctilio lies part of the secret of its skill as a hunter. Nicknamed the fishing bat, its sensitive sonar can echolocate a ripple on the surface of a stream or lake. The signals he sends and receives can distinguish between a fish and a floating leaf. We are just now beginning to learn how some bats obtain their food and how they live.
Well, bat, how are you today? Let's see. Oh, you're RT. Are you fisty?
Biophysicist Fred Webster began his work with bats a little over a decade ago. His classic experiments unexpectedly shattered one long-standing misconception.
Last time.
His investigations revolve around the uncanny ability of bats to capture flying insects in midair.
You weigh 9.5 even right now. 9.5. Okay, let's put you back.
With the technical skill of camera and sound assistant Dan Nachtigall, Webster's bats have become the star performers in a compelling series of film studies.
Right.
Okay, Fred, the microphone's set.
Okay, let's take you up and see if you want to fly. Now, you ready to go? There you go. Yeah, now wait a bit.
Webster began his experiments to demonstrate on film what scientists already knew, that the bat's fluttering, seemingly erratic flight had a vital purpose. The food he catches in midair is not caught at random. He is directed by echolocation.
Wrong time.
Webster confirmed that bats can catch a specific target, but he also discovered something no one had suspected. Because the incredibly swift maneuvering of the animal had defied the human eye, it remained for the slow-motion camera to reveal the bat's startling method of capturing its prey. Before filming, a pneumatic device is set up to toss mealworms to the same spot each time. Strobe lights will fire for a duration of only 1 second. The high-speed camera will run for 3.
Okay, that seems to be about the right height.
Okay, the camera's set. Let's fly some bats.
Okay, now let's get it. That's pretty good. Once more, see if you're right now. Okay, the pattern's right. Ready? Didn't catch it. Okay, getting in the pattern. Here she comes. Nice catch. Okay, let's try again.
Its movement and its voice slowed down by 32 times. The common bat reveals an unexpected grace and beauty. Making no attempt to catch food in its mouth, the bat catches insects in the membranes of its wings and tail. And so the studies have continued in hopes of determining how this strange creature of the night can discriminate between tiny flying objects with nothing but sound signals transmitted through the dark.
Gracias y alabanzas te damos, gran Señor. Alabamos tu gran poder, que con el alma en el cuerpo nos has dejado.
In every culture, in every age, people have turned to the supernatural, seeking help from forces they cannot comprehend. Even now in Latin America, they pray for help against a silent, unseen killer who brings death by night. The immediate victims are rarely human beings, but their lives and livelihoods are threatened as domestic cattle from Mexico to Argentina are lost to a disease the cattlemen are powerless to stop. The ranchers of Mexico alone lose 100,000 head of cattle each year from rabies, infection, and loss of blood, all caused by a shadowy creature, part folklore and part reality. In the brilliant morning sunlight, unsuspected within the herd are some already marked for death. Not all will die, but they have felt the bite of the legendary vampire bat. Into those often isolated ranches cursed by the mark of the vampire comes new hope, almost unnoticed and often greeted with skepticism. Two American scientists from the United States Agency for International Development travel across Latin America in search of the vampire bat. They are Dr. Clay Mitchell and Richard Burns.
Dice, por aquí tienen unas vacas. ¿Cuántos podemos ver nosotros?
Sí, cómo no.
¿Sí? ¿Nos permite pasar a ver
Sí,
al
cómo
ganado y darle una revisadita?
Sí, cómo no.
Muchas gracias.
Con permiso.
Gracias.
Mitchell and Burns are field scientists, part of a war against the vampire bat. Their immediate mission is to find and eliminate the vampire wherever it threatens the herds.
This one has a fresh bite in the neck, Dick. There's one in the axilla, too.
Certain now that vampires are in the area, Mitchell and Burns will trace the bats to the caves where they hide from the light of day.
Por aquí cerca? ¿Dónde está la cueva?
Ahí arriba.
Bueno, podemos buscarlo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Adiós.
Beyond the cleared pasture lands of many Latin American ranches lies the still wild jungle. Somewhere, camouflaged by underbrush, there is a hillside cave, the daylight hiding place of the vampire bats. In the hollows and crannies of this cave, a great number and variety of bats may have found their dismal sanctuary. But no other species of bat will roost together with the vampire. Even among other bats, it seems to be an outcast.
Vegetation there. Fruit bats are in here.
In the narrowing passageway, Mitchell and Burns find unmistakable evidence. Because the vampire exists on blood, its droppings are like tar. They have always shunned the light and lived their lives shrouded in darkness and mythology. Within one area, there may be thousands of vampire bats, but an individual colony rarely exceeds 100. To find each colony and wipe it out would not be feasible. To destroy the cave would be to kill other helpful kinds of bats. The first decisive encounter between scientist and vampire will occur in the dead of night, alongside the corral where the cattle will be penned. To capture a handful of bats, Burns and Mitchell stretch nets across the bat's natural route between the cave and the corral. Their finely woven mist nets of tough nylon threads reflect little echo for the sonar system of the bats. Undetectable by vampire bats, who flee from any light, including moonlight, are small sources of invisible infrared illumination. Modern technology can now convert the infrared to a green visible light. The owl eye, an image intensifier, will amplify the infrared by 20,000 times. It will penetrate the darkness and reveal the vampire bats feeding on the cattle. Finally, all work lights are turned off, and in total darkness, the owl eye focuses on the waiting victims.
There's one flying over.
Yeah, I see it. He went over or off to the left.
Yeah. There's one flying over behind you.
Flying all over now, there's lots of them. There's one right over there, see it?
Uh-huh.
Looks like he's gonna make a bite.
I think so.
Their scientific name is Desmodus rotundus. The term vampire had its origin in medieval legend, long before man was aware of the bat who drinks the blood of living things.
There's one on the ground over there.
Mm-hmm.
Vampire bats, like every other creature, evolved to play their part in nature's balance. Once they fed on wild animals, and their own numbers were controlled by the difficulty of finding food. But when docile, defenseless cattle were brought into the wild, the vampire bat found a boundless reservoir of blood, and its numbers multiplied.
Look at that cattle fight. Yeah, slapping with their ears, trying to shake them off.
The scientist's objective is not to exterminate the vampire species, but to control its numbers, to restrict it to the wild and its rightful place in nature, and to save the cattle.
Looks like he's gonna bite on the tail. There's the bite. There's two there, yeah. Hey, that's neat. They're pushing against each other. A great big cow, and they have to fight on the neck.
Of the hundreds of vampire bats that have attacked the cattle in the night, 30 are trapped in the nets.
Yeah, he's been here for quite a while.
And this number 16?
Yeah. So you got 15 down below.
They will be scientifically treated and released to become agents of destruction among their own species.
You want to treat this one?
Yeah.
He hasn't fed yet. He must have got caught when he was coming into the corral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's go see if there's any more. Esophagus, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Among the captured bats, there is one who is not an enemy, but an ally of man.
Now let's let this one go.
Okay.
It's a good bat. There's one down at the bottom.
Vampire?
Yeah.
Okay.
The essence of their life is blood. Now blood will become the instrument of death.
Should be treated.
In folklore, the heroes conquered vampires with a wooden stake. In real life, the vampire bat is vulnerable to science. Coated with a powerful anticoagulant, he becomes a carrier of death. Even a small amount swallowed by a bat will cause a fatal hemorrhage.
Good. Okay, we'll release this one.
Okay. Release it.
Returning to the cave, they will spread the substance from bat to bat. In cleaning themselves and each other, they will swallow fatal doses. The scientists estimate that 20 or 30 will die for each one treated.
Here goes another one.
Yeah.
The dreaded vampire bat is now a laboratory subject, hopefully the key to understanding the deadly rabies virus. No creature seems more repulsive than one who thrives on blood and lives by night. But he is neither good nor evil. He is just another creature trying to survive. And like many others, he has found his world in the darkness.
The door.
For Richard Bennett, sound is a window on the world. Through a highly sensitive machine which translates printed words into electronic signals, he can read.
Who seemed...
Working at the Veterans Administration in Palo Alto, California, he evaluates reading machines for the blind.
impossibly tall.
Since the loss of his sight, Richard Bennett has gained his impressions of the world around him through touch and smell and sound. Now he uses a new device, sonic glasses, which add a new dimension to his world. The glasses, designed not for sight, but for sound, emit ultrasonic pulses, which strike objects in Richard Bennett's path and return as audible and meaningful echoes. Richard Bennett has become a human parallel to the bat, echolocating as he travels, interpreting the sounds that make up a picture of his world. As with Richard Bennett's sonic glasses, technology has often imitated nature, consciously or not. Science tries to do for human beings what time has done for other creatures, adapt them to a world without light. The wonder is not that science and technology can help a man adjust to blindness, nor is it that man, like other creatures, has senses and instincts to help guide him through an endless night. The real wonder is that a human being, unlike any other creature, can adapt to an element not his own, through the sheer power of his intelligence and determination.